अच्छा इंशाल्लाह कि मैंने दुआ से inshallah we'll be beginning from ayah number 41 of Surah Ma'idah, inshallah. Allah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الرسول لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر من الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم ولم تؤمن قلوبهم ومن الذين هادوا سماعون للكذب سماعون لقوم آخرين لم يأتوك يحرفون الكلم من بعد مواضعه يقولون إن أوتيتم هذا فخذوه وإن لم تؤتوه فاحذروا ومن يرد الله فتنته فلن تملك له من الله شيئا أولئك الذين لم يرد الله أن يطهر قلوبهم لهم في الدنيا خزي ولهم في الآخرة عذاب عظيم سماعون للكذب أكالون للسحت فإن جاءوك فاحكم بينهم أو أعرض عنهم وإن تعرض عنهم فلن يضروك شيئا وإن حكمت فاحكم بينهم بالقسط إن الله يحب المقسطين وكيف يحكمونك وعندهم التوراة فيها حكم الله ثم يتولون من بعد ذلك وما أولئك بالمؤمنين صدق الله العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. The close translation is, O Messenger, those who race towards disbelief should not be a cause of grief for you. Those who say with their mouths, we believe, while their hearts do not believe, as well as those who happen to be Jews. They are listeners of the lie, listeners for other people who did not come to you. They displace the words after their having been properly placed. They say, if you are given this, take it, and if you are not given this, then avoid. And then one whom Allah wills to put to trial, for him you shall never be able to do anything against Allah. They are the ones whose hearts Allah did not intend to purify. For them there is great humiliation in this world, and for them there is a great punishment in the hereafter. Listeners of the lie, eaters of the unlawful, so if they come to you, judge between them or turn away from them. And if you turn away from them, they can do you no harm. And if you judge, judge between them with justice. Surely Allah loves those who do justice. And how do they ask you to judge while the Torah is there with them having the judgment of Allah? Still they turn away after that. They are not believers. We are, alhamdulillah, about halfway done with Surah Ma'idah. So now the question I ask you all is that what do you think that these ayahs are referring to? Good, munafiqun. But what else? What else do you think is being discussed here, other than just munafiqun? Kind of. So this is where context it helps as well, right? So there's context to these ayat. The Quran, the words of it are general, but in order to understand the Quran, one needs to also know the historical background. Sometimes an ayah is relevant, or an ayah will make sense only when one knows what happened behind it. Now, if you remember the past few weeks, we spoke about the hudud, Islamic justice. Basically, Surah Ma'idah, it began, remember I told you there's a few main principles in Surah Ma'idah. One is, what is it? The fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wattaqullah. Number two is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His punishment when one does not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Wattaqullaha inna Allaha shadidul iqab. And then a third theme is what happens when people are entitled, right? Groups of people who become entitled and think that deen is their birthright, the way that they will act. You see what the Yahud are doing now. Because Surah Ma'idah, it begins with some discussion about animals, about meat. And then after that, it shifts to a discussion about the Bani Israel. And to the end of the surah, the Bani Israel are discussed. And remember the Bani Israel, they had two groups, the Yahud and the Nasara. They were both from the Bani Israel. So initially, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He addresses the Yahud and all of their many misdeeds. Okay? But as needed, because the style of the Quran is it's like a bayan. And in a bayan, you go here, you go there. If there's a related point, you'll go on the tangent. The Quran goes on the tangent, right? So when speaking about the Bani Israel and the fitna and fasad that they caused, right? Mention was made of killing unlawfully and then the penalties for killing. And in the middle, taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was brought again. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah wabtaghu ilayhi al-wasila. So the hudud were mentioned. We spoke about the different penal laws in Islam for stealing, for rebellion. And now the discussion comes back to the Bani Israel. Why? What is the connection between hudud, ta'zir, penal laws and the Bani Israel? In fact, the background of these ayahs being revealed had to deal with them trying to skirt and try to avoid facing hudud and penal laws. So there were three groups of Yahud in Medina, in the surrounding areas of Medina. What were they? Who remembers their names? Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, Banu Qaynuqa. Banu Qaynuqa. Qaynuqa, they left early, right? And now there were two left, Banu Nazir and Banu Qurayza. Banu Qurayza, they were weaker than Banu Nazir. So Banu Nazir was more powerful. And the law of the land at that time was might is right. Whoever is stronger, they will impose their will. Now, what was sad, what was unfortunate is the Banu Qurayza, Banu Nazir, they were both Yahud, right? So the law should treat them equally. But because the Banu Nazir, they were stronger than the Banu Qurayza, they made all sorts of changes to the law to favor them, right? They were abandoning what the Torah said. For example, they made a treaty with the Banu Qurayza, the Banu Nazir. The Banu Qurayza, at a time of weakness, they made this treaty. They said that if anybody from the Banu Nazir kills somebody from the Banu Qaynuqa, there's no qisas. Instead, all they'll have to do is they'll have to give 70 wasaq of dates, which is about 195 kilograms of date. Usually their law in the Bani Israel, وَكَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ فِيهَا أَنَّ النَّفْسَ بِالنَّفْسِ, a life for a life. You killed one of our people, we could retaliate. They made them sign a document, they made them come to a treaty saying that if we kill one of your people, all we have to do is give dates as blood money, nothing else. However, if the Banu Qurayza killed a person from Banu Nadir, there will be qisas, meaning that the Banu Nadir will kill somebody from Banu Qurayza. And along with that, they'll take double blood money. They'll take 140 wasaq, meaning almost 400 dates in qisas, in blood money, along with that. There's many other ways that the Banu Nazir, they treated the Banu Qaynuqa the Banu Qurayza very unfairly. Now Islam comes to Medina. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he brings Islam, which is justice. He's the leader of Medina and everybody has agreed to this. So now the Banu Qurayza, they wanted to play it both ways. They saw that Islam was just, right? And they felt that Islam's penal system was more lenient than that of the Yahud. So they said, we're not going to accept Islam because they have pride, they have arrogance, they had greed. And along with that, they still had their superiority that they have within them that we spoke about in Surah Baqarah, this perceived superiority that they have within them. But what they did try to use Islam was as a crutch to get rid of the Banu Nazir's tyranny over them. So Banu Nazir keeps treating them badly. They say, now we're not going to go to the rabbis to judge anymore because the rabbis have been bought out, right? Instead, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the leader of Medina, he's a governmental force, we're going to leave our personal law, right? The people from India, like there's Muslim personal law in India, right? We're going to leave the Yahud personal law and we're going to take it to the government, we're going to take it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and let him rule. Okay? So this is one. So then what happened was, there was one group of people, there was a killing, and so they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sorry, I'm just checking one thing. Right. So the Banu Qurayza, they said, now we will go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam anytime, you kill one of our people, there's a qisas situation, we'll go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was another situation as well in Khaybar, in which two Yahudis, they committed zina with one another. They were married, adultery. So now, what does it say in the Torah? Stoned to death for the adulterer, right? Stoned to death. They didn't want this to happen. So what they did was, they said, let's ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they told the Banu Qurayza, ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam what the Islamic penalty is for adultery, because they thought it would be less than stoning. Jibreel alayhi salam came and he revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's stoning. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this, and then they said, well, this isn't what it says in the Torah. We're not going to accept it. So then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked them, who's your big rabbi? He said his name is Ibn Suriyah. So then they went to this Ibn Suriyah and they asked him about this. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, swear on the one who's revealed the Torah that what is the punishment for adultery in the Torah. He said, if you didn't make me take this oath and I wasn't afraid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would punish, I would have lied. The actual punishment is stoning. However, because rich people got involved in this, we changed the penalty. We made up something, we lashed them a little bit, we embarrassed them a little bit, we made them pay money, and so we changed the law over time. Okay? So this is the background of these two ayahs. So what would the Yahud do? In essence, they would go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to get the benefits of Islam and not have to, and they saw one other benefit in this. They said that if we go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now we won't have to violate the Torah anymore. Now we have plausible deniability. Look, the Torah says if somebody commits zina, you have to be stoned to death. They thought Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Sharia is easy. So let's go to him, let's ask him. Now what we could say is that, well, the head of state, he ruled, the Qadi, he ruled that we have to do this penalty which they thought would be lighter. So it's not me or you that's changing the laws of the Torah, lying about it. Somebody else is forcing us, right? That's like a person saying that, okay, well, today in the khutbah we spoke about divorce, right? We spoke about divorce. So in Islam, a woman, she doesn't have the right to initiate a divorce, right? She doesn't have any right to initiate a divorce. There's only 3 ways that a woman can end a marriage. Either there's something called Tawheed talaq. That means that the husband gives her permission, I give you permission, you can initiate divorce if you want. That can be done at the time of marriage. That can be done during the marriage. I don't think it's advisable, but it's allowed. Then there's khula. Khula is not woman divorce as people think. I'm giving khula. I was dealing with a case that the person, they told me the husband wanted to divorce her. She said, I don't want a divorce. I want khula. I said, divorce is free, right? Well, you're trying to pay him to divorce you? He's willing to do it already. That's what khula is. Khula is the husband is not willing to divorce. But then the wife says, let me give you something so you could divorce me. This is what khula is. It's still the husband's choice to accept. And then she told me, oh, but I only have 1 month idda in khula. So no, that's not true. It's regular. It's talaq ba'in, right? So that's the second way. The third way that a marriage can be ended is if she takes it to a qadi in a Muslim country or a Sharia council in a non-Muslim country, and they speak to her and like they hear her case and everything, they see are there really grounds to terminate this marriage? Is zulm being done against her? I don't like him. Isn't any zulm, right? It's not zulm. So anyways, let's say that over here, and women, they do this all the time. What they do is they go to the court. They just initiate the divorce there. I'm telling you right now, if the judge gives the order and the husband doesn't sign it with the niyat of shari divorce, they're still married. They're still married. Whatever she does, it's guna afterwards, right? If the husband signs it with the intention of shari talaq, theek hai, that's fine. But if he doesn't, the divorce hasn't occurred. But what is she able to do? Islam doesn't allow this. It's the judge is ordering it. The government is ordering it. Let me take it to somewhere else. Same thing. Alimony. It's not allowed in Islam. When a woman is divorced, what is she allowed? She's given her mahar. That's it. The husband has to support her during the iddah. After the iddah, 100% of the children's expenses are on the father. Right? Mother is not responsible for anything for the children in terms of payment. Right? In fact, the father has to actually keep the children. Custody after different ages for boys and girls. Custody is his responsibility, right? But alimony to be paid, that's not an Islamic concept. Taking assets that were gained during the marriage, not an Islamic concept. But if somebody goes to the court and then says, well, the court awarded me all of this, what am I supposed to do? This is exactly what the Yahud did. The Yahud said that, look, we're not violating our laws. Somebody else is forcing us to. We had to take it over there. That's basically what they were doing. They had this plausible deniability. But they would still play the system. Even then, they played more. What happened was, amongst the munafiqun in Medina, majority of the munafiqun, they were Yahud, right? So these munafiqun, what they would do is they would try to spend time around Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would have their, friends, family members in the Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, and they say that, look, in the Torah, this ruling is very hard. We think that the Islamic ruling will be more lenient. Try to find out what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to rule in this case. So we're going to take it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Try to find out what he's going to say beforehand, okay? And if it's positive, we're going to go through with the case. Otherwise, we're just going to turn back to the Torah. Now you're thinking, this seems like a big... People do this. Muslims do this. Everything in Surah Baqarah, Surah Ali Imran, Surah Ma'idah, it's not to be read to say, Bani Israel are bad, Bani Israel are bad. Yeah, people do bad things, right? But are we free of this or not? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we will follow the Bani Israel step by step, to the extent that if someone from the Bani Israel did an act of indecency with their own mother, somebody from this ummah will do this as well. Subhanallah, Allah Shan. Just today, somebody called me or spoke to me and said that, and it just clicked with this ayah that we're going to talk about today. He said, you do counseling? I said, yeah, there's a process to do counseling. You sign up for it and this and that, like sign up for the time. So yeah, I've been trying to convince my friend to come for counseling for a long time because of some marital dispute. But he doesn't want to come because he's saying, whatever the conflict is between husband and wife, he's afraid if he goes to the imam is going to say that the wife is right? He's just going to say that the wife is right. So beforehand, he's trying to find out, what are you going to say? And if you're going to say what's in my favor, then I'm going to come and talk to you. Right? Is that any different than this? Not any different than this. Now come to the ayah. Ya ayyuhar rasul. O Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر. Those who race towards disbelief should not be a cause of grief for you. The fact that they would make a mockery of deen, the fact that after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ruled something and they said, no, we're not going to take it, it hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine, somebody comes to you for a problem and you sit and you listen to their problem and you go through everything with them, and then at the end you tell them, okay, this is what we're going to do. And they say, you know what, we're not going to listen to you. How will you feel? I wasted my time, I wasted my energy, I wasted my efforts, I was like invested in this. So Allah saying, Ya ayyuha rasul la yahzunka alladhina yusari'una fil kufr. These people who race towards kufr, they should not be a cause of disbelief for you, of grief for you. Who are these people? قالوا آمنا الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم. Those who say we believe with our mouths. ولم تؤمن قلوبهم, but their hearts don't believe. يعني they are hypocrites. They're munafiqun. ومن الذين هادوا. Okay, as well as those who happen to be Yahud. Yahud, they do this as well. Right? The biggest type of the munafiqun in Medina were the Yahud. Now, what does Rasulullah ﷺ say about them? سَمَّاعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ سَمَّاعُونَ لِقَوْمٍ آخَرِينَ لَمْ يَأْتُوكَ. The سَمَّاعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ, they listen to lies. I'm going to come back to what this means. سَمَّاعُونَ لِقَوْمٍ آخَرِينَ لَمْ يَأْتُوكَ, and they listen for another group of people who do not come to you. The munafiqun around Rasulullah ﷺ were spies, listening and trying to find out what Rasulullah ﷺ is going to rule, and he's telling those people who haven't yet come to Rasulullah ﷺ. يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَمَّ مَوَاضِعِهِ يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوَاضِعِهِ. They change, they move the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or they distort the words of the Torah min ba'di mawadi'ihi, after they've been placed. What is this? Changing. How will they change the Torah? For the Yahud, they did it in two ways. Okay? This is one longer discussion. I'm just going to put the thought in your mind and I'm not going to speak about it any longer. Maulana Qasim Nanotwi rahmatullahi alayhi writes that Torah, Injil, other books, they were Kitabullah, but they weren't Kalamullah. They were Kitabullah, they weren't Kalamullah. Nowhere in the Quran is the Torah or Injil called Kalamullah. One place, يَسْمَعُونَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُحَرِّفُونَ, that's not referring to the Torah. That's referring to Allah speaking to Musa alayhi salam, and وَاخْتَارَ مُوسَى قَوْمَهُ سَبْعِينَ رَجُلًا, 70 people with him. So they're never called Kalamullah, because لَن يُبَدِّلُوا كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. The words of Allah can never be changed. But if a book was given to the people, right, that could be changed. Torah, Injil, they came down at one time. So they actually changed the words, right? They changed they changed the words of the Torah, actually, and that's been proven. You'll see the distortions. Along with that, what they do is they do incorrect tafsir of it as well, right? Which is present in our ummah. Nobody can change the words of the Quran. But as far as doing incorrect tafsir of the Quran, that's done as well. That's done in this day and age. يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَمَّ مَوَاضِعِهِ. For example, LGBT people. Some of them, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He never punished Qawmi Lut for that act. Rather, He punished Qawmi Lut for the fact that they mistreated Lut alayhi salam's guests. That goes against the tafsir of the Sahaba. That goes against the zahir of the Quran. What are they doing? يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوَاضِعِهِ. They're changing the words after they have been put in their place. يَقُولُونَ إِنْ أُوتِيتُمْ هَذَا فَخُذُوهُ. The Yahud, they say, إِنْ أُوتِيتُمْ هَذَا, if He gives you this, فَخُذُوهُ, take it. Meaning, this is the ruling that we want. What is this called in our day and age? Fatwa shopping. وَإِن لَمْ تُؤْتَوْهُ فَاحْذَرُوا. And if He doesn't give that to you, beware. Beware. فَاحْذَرُوا. And Allah says, وَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ فِتْنَتَهُ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes for a trial to be upon them, فَلَن تَمْلِكَ لَهُ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. Right? They'll never be able to do anything against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ لَمْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يُطَهِّرَ قُلُوبَهُم. These are the people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want to purify their hearts. لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا خِزْيٌ. For them in this dunya is disgrace. وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And the punishment for them in the hereafter is even greater. There's a huge punishment for them in the hereafter. سَمَّاعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ. Again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they are listeners of lies, أَكَّالُونَ لِلسُّحْتِ. And they eat filth, they eat utter destruction. فَإِن جَاءُوكَ. If they come to you, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ أَوْ أَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ. Ya Rasulullah, if these people, if they come to you with their disputes, judge, أَوْ أَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ, or turn away from them. وَإِن تُعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ. If they turn away from you, فَلَا يَضُرُّكَ شَيْئًا. They won't be able to help you. Or sorry, if you turn away from them, وَإِن تُعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ فَلَا يَضُرُّكَ شَيْئًا. They won't be able to hurt you. They might say this or that. You need to judge between us. You need to listen to our thing. They won't be able to hurt you. وَإِن حَكَمْتَ. But if you decide to take on their case, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. Rule between them bilqist, with justice. And what is this justice referring to? The Quran, the Sharia, this Sharia. No longer Yahud personallah, this Sharia. Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin. Verily Allah loves those who do justice. وَكَيْفَ يُحَكِّمُونَكَ. How can they make you a judge? وَعِنْدَهُمُ التَّوْرَاتُ فِيهَا حُكْمُ اللَّهِ. When they have the Torah in which there is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ruling. ثُمَّ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ مِن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ. And then they turn away from that. وَمَا أُولَٰئِكَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ. They're not believers, they don't believe in anything. What is this all referring to? Now, in a Muslim country, when there's non-Muslim subjects, think to the Ottoman Empire, for example. Think about the Abbasid Khilafah. Think about in the time of Umar radiallahu an. Think, in the Mughal Empire, right? Is there any situation here today, theoretically, but no country is really being run on Islamic law, other than maybe Afghanistan, maybe Mauritania, right? But theoretically, let's say that there's a Muslim country, and it has happened in the past. There are Muslims, remember we talked about, there are non-Muslims, zimmis, who are basically citizens of the country. They want to be part of the country. They pay tax into the country. We talked about jizya. They do all of that. These people, when they commit a crime, right? When they commit a crime, they are going to be treated by the law of the land. The law is going to be the same for Muslims. It's going to be the same for zimmis as well, right? Non-Muslims. For example, for theft, we talked about the hudud. The hand would be cut of a Muslim, of a Christian, of a Yahud, of a Hindu, anybody that's a zimmi, right? The law is not going to be different from a Muslim or for a zimmi. Similarly, adultery, because it causes societal ills, the law would be the same, because these are crimes. But when it came to personal matters, marriage, divorce, iddah, these types of things, zimmis were allowed to have their own personal law, right? They could rule amongst themselves. However, if they brought it to the Islamic court, to the government court, to the qadi, now the qadi, he has to rule. He can't turn them away because they're citizens of the country. And he needs to rule according to Islam, not their religion. That's فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is being given the option here to turn them away. Why? Because the Yahud, they never accepted to be subservient to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's government. So they were like non-Muslims who had a visa to come and go. For people like that, the qadi doesn't have to accept their case. That's why over here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, listen to them, don't listen to them, it's up to you. But if you decide to take on the case, you can only rule through the Sharia. This is something for Muslims to think about as well. If me or you is put in a position of responsibility where we have to give a ruling, we can't rule against Islam. Now, as we talked about, Islamic law is not so inflexible that, every single penalty is written out. There's 5 hudud, right? Otherwise, then the government, the qadi, he has the right. He could say, for this thing, okay, there's this punishment. If there's, even we said that a constitution can be made. As long as the shari'i hudud are not touched, Other laws can be made, and it could be binding upon the qadi to follow those laws, no problem. But a qadi cannot rule something contrary to the sharia. Even if me or you, if we're made a judge over somebody, remember a hakam, not a hakim, a hakam. If somebody comes to us for our dispute, we're not allowed to rule with anything. فَإِنْ حَكَمْتَ فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْقِسْطِ. Right? If you take on a case, you have to rule with justice through the sharia, through what the Quran and Sunnah say. Alright? So think about this. People in our family, sometimes you're a prominent person in your family. Some people come to you with a dispute, you have to guide them, not according to your desires, not according to I like this person, not according to blindly you're going to accept what I say. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? What is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying? Allah loves those who do justice. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that why is it that they're turning away from the Torah? They're not accepting your sharia. Why are they turning away from the book that they have? In these ayat also, and we're going to end with this, 5 bad qualities of the Yahud are mentioned. Right? 5 bad qualities. Number 1, I said we'd come back to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سَمَّعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ. They listen to lies. What lies are they listening to? Sure, they listen to one another lie. But this is referring to the lies that they would listen to of their ulama. Their ulama would make up things about their deen, lie to them, and they would blindly accept it. This happens in our sharia as well, not in our sharia, in our Muslims as well. Yes, the average person has no recourse except to go to a scholar for their deen, right? And if you go to a scholar for your deen and they give you an answer and that answer is wrong, the sin is not on you. The potential sin would be on the scholar if he didn't do his due diligence in answering the question. However, there is some due diligence due upon you, and that due diligence is that you need to find out who is a reliable scholar or not. Now, are you going to go and look at, take a test of them? Okay, what does this ayah mean? What does this ayah mean? What does this ibarat from Hidayah say? No. But just like you can't evaluate a doctor or a lawyer like that, what are you going to do? You're going to see what reputation this person has. What reputation does this doctor have? What do other doctors say about him? What do people say about him? What experiences have they had? What do they say about this person's character? Where did this person study? Did they actually study? Or did they just start showing up on my YouTube feed? And I don't know did they actually study, or have they just been sitting in a basement and they're really good at talking, right? That's the due diligence that's due on a person. Nowadays especially, it's if you get a WhatsApp video or you see something on TikTok or YouTube shorts and you start acting on it blindly and it's a wrong thing, sin is on you. It's not on anyone else. Because if you don't know who the person is in the video, no matter if they're saying Bukhari, Muslim, anything, if you don't know the person in the video, if you don't know that they're a reliable scholar, right? You didn't do your due diligence, right? Just because a person has a big beard and is wearing a rumal or wearing a turban, that doesn't mean that they're qualified to say anything about deen, right? Ibn Sirin, rahmatullahi alayhi, is in the beginning of the muqaddimah of Imam Muslim's book. He said that, Inna hadha al-ilma deenun. This knowledge is deen, so be very careful who you take your deen from. Right? Be very careful who you take knowledge from. This was a non-existent problem until 20, 30 years ago. Right? You'll just learn from your local ulama. Maybe 2, 3 national ulama. Imam Siraj Wahaj, like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, like people knew that. Go back even before that, few prominent ulama, but people had relationship with their local scholars, right? If you had a question, you go to them. You know them. They live with you. One dalil of a person's reliability is that person lives in front of you. Rasulullah ﷺ was told to tell the people, لَقَدْ لَبِثْتُ فِيكُمْ عُمْرًا مِّن قَبْلِ. I lived my whole life with you. You know how I am. I'm not a bogus person. I'm not one way here and one way there. You see me, not for Rasulullah, but for your ulama, you see them, they're human beings, they make mistakes as well. You see, generally the person is pious, they're knowledgeable, they try to do the right thing. So due diligence is due on a person as well to find the right scholar. Again, to an extent. Now, after that, if they tell you something wrong, the questioning is for that scholar. I'm also going to say one other thing here as well. You know, sometimes people, so many texts all the time. Quick question. We're leaving. Yeah, quick question, 2 minutes. It's quick for you to ask, right? You know, sometimes, you know, what they say, like, like, 2 minute ki question. Sar bhir jata. I'm like, oh my God, 2 minute ki question, 2 din ki kaam, right? Like, because what happens is, it might be a simple thing. He asked me a question yesterday about something about tahara. I was pretty sure I knew it. I said, man, like if I tell him incorrectly, his ghusl is going to be messed up. I'm going to have to answer for that. I said, let me just make sure I am correct. So, I just checked with my senior as well. I just checked with, what do you think? Even all these fatwa that we write, right? What does it say on them? At that, checked and approved by. Even not checked and approved, concurred by. Even if nothing is written, at the very least, when we write something, we'll just check with a friend. Hey, just read this one time. Is there anything that you think that I missed? Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, when he would be asked a question, it was as if he was standing in front of Jannah and Jahannam. It's like Jannah and Jahannam were in front of him. He would change like that. And Imam Malik was not afraid to say, I don't know, rahimahullah. Person came from either Spain or West Africa. Momo. When that group of people came, where was it? Spain? Morocco. It was either Spain or Morocco, one of the two. They came to Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh with 40 plus questions to ask him. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh to 36, 37, he said, I don't know. They said, we're coming from a place where people say that only Imam Malik can answer these questions. He said, well, go and tell them Malik says, I don't know. They said, do something. He said, then wait, give me time, let me think, let me pray salah and make dua to Allah that Allah puts the answer in my heart. Like Mufti Taqi Usmani, Hafizahullah, I heard this somewhere, that anytime if somebody asks a question, first thing he makes dua in his heart, Ya Allah, allow me to answer properly. Let me make dua, let me think about it, right? Because why? As I said in the khutbah today, a mufti is not God. He's not a Nabi either. If you present some scenario to him, if you change the scenario just so that he tells you you're not divorced, right? But in reality, the waqi', what happened, it does result in a divorce. He could say this. You can't go on the Day of Judgment and say this. No, you know what happened, right? No fatwa can change the reality of what actually occurred. That reality you know, and you have to be honest. But what the mufti is he is the muwaqi' al-Rabbil Alameen. He's the one who basically co-signs. He basically stamps on behalf of Rabbul Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tells the person, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, right? You present the scenario. And then he says, look, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands that you do at this time. Take it or leave it. He's not going to chase you down afterwards either. But it's a very important thing. So, like a question, it's not usually a 2 minute, do you have 2 minutes? Your 2 minute question, it turns into 2 hours. It's not even 2 minutes, usually like 2 hours with you. It's like 2 days of work afterwards, and even more. And then sometimes like, I just don't know. You'll ask other people, they're difficult things, right? So anyway, we have to know. And if you have a scholar in your life that says, I don't know, thank Allah and stick to that person. Yeah, if he says, I don't know to every single thing, then maybe you gotta look somewhere. But if he tells you, I don't know, or let me get back to you, that shows that he fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That shows that he's not going to tell you something wrong just so that you don't think he doesn't know something, right? Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he said, La adri nisful ilm. Saying, I don't know is half of knowledge, right? Not lan adri, I'll never know. La adri, I don't know right now. Okay? Next thing, سَمَّعُونَ لِقَوْمٍ آخَرِينَ لَمْ يَأْتُوكَ. This is their other bad quality, second bad quality. They listen for another group of people. They have a preconceived notion of what they want. لَمْ يَأْتُوكَ, right? And then after that, لَمْ يَدُوكَ يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ يَقُولُونَ إِنْ أُوتِيتُمْ هَذَا. They say if he gives you this, فَخُذُوا, take it. And if he doesn't, فَحْذَرُوا, stay away from him, beware of him. This is fatwa shopping. As I said, this is their second bad quality. Muslims do this all the time. You call one scholar, is this interest? Yes. Second person, is it interest? Yes. Third person, no. Take it, because you just wanted the fatwa. Again, he's not a Nabi, right? He's not a Nabi. You can't go, it's not a all-you-can-eat buffet that you just go around and choose one and then show Allah, yeah, I got the fatwa from this person. This is why we say follow one mazhab. It's not that Shafi'i mazhab is right and Hanafi mazhab is wrong. Hanbali mazhab is wrong, Hanafi mazhab is right, Hanbali mazhab is right, Maliki mazhab is wrong, Maliki is right, Hanafi is right. They're all right, but we say stick to one because you're not going to fall into this fatwa shopping. Otherwise, how in the world can you say that my nafs is not involved? When you hear 3-4 opinions, what are you going to go towards? You're going to go towards what's easier. Imam Abu Hanifa never said that I think that this is the most convenient thing over here, right? Imam Abu Hanifa said, I think that this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants. And they have principles that they follow. And when you jump between different mazahib, there's underlying principles in the masail that you're contradicting, right? So this is their second bad thing. What would they do is they would go fatwa shopping. So we should stop this. And again, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Muslim Sharif's hadith, Al-ismu ma haka fi sadrika wa karihta ay yattali alayhi nas. Sin is what rattles in your heart and you dislike people to know. Why does a person come and ask me a question and I tell them something, then they said, well, Imam Ihsan said this. You're the fitting, right? You didn't like what he told you, so you're hoping that I said something different, right? Then why do you go and you ask Mufti Rabbani? Why do you come to say, Rabbani Sahib said this, and Sheikh Masmari said this? Why? Because you yourself, it's not sitting in your heart. Well, I saw this online. Well, if you saw it online, then take it. Why are you asking me? You're asking me. You're asking Imam Ihsan. You're asking Mufti Rabbani to co-sign you doing something that we think is wrong. No. The job of a scholar, the job of a mufti is to say, this is what I believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants in this, and believe based on study, based on fact. The third thing that they did, سَأَكَّالُونَ لِلسُّحْتِ. They would take bribes. Bribery is something that is underpinned. The word suht over here, it actually means destruction. But Ali radiallahu anh, he says that it means, suht in this context, it means taking bribes. The reason for that the word bribe is suht, destruction, is used for bribe is because a bribe, it undermines the entire society, right? It destroys the entire society because the society will only function when people are fulfilling their jobs, right? You've been given a job, you have to fulfill it. Now when it comes to a bribe, you're not even going to be doing your job. You're not going to do what you're supposed to do, so the society will collapse. And in the case of deen, when it comes to a Deeni person, you're bribing a person, like the Bani Israel. And like I saw some video, Wallahu Alam, in India, that they would go to different people and try to pay them to give a fatwa, and then some people, they took the money. There was a hidden camera. Wallahu Alam. But when a person is taking bribes, what's happening now? Deen is being sold as well. The destruction of deen is taking place due to bribery. Right? Very destructive thing. A whole society, it grinds to a halt. I have a cousin who lived in one country, right? Muslim country. So I asked him, how did you end up here? Very successful businessman and everything. So he told me that he wanted to start a business. He said he had to wait in line for several days. How? I don't know how it works. I'm just saying what he said. I had to stay in line for several days. He said finally when he got to the front of a line in a Muslim country, they said, okay, give a bribe, rishwat, give something. He said, forget it. I'm going to go to America. I have a relative there. And mashallah, very successful businessman now, right? Meaning you left a Muslim country, and many Muslim countries have ground to a halt because of what? Because of bribery. Akaluna lis-su'ud. Bribery equals destruction, right? The last bad quality that they had, and we already kind of spoke about this as well, is changing the meanings. يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه. Doing incorrect tafsir. Doing tafsir of, for them, the Torah, and in our ummah, people doing tafsir of the Quran in accordance with their desires. I really want this, so I'm going to read the ayah like this. I'm going to, and I talked about this to a group of people, just to do tafsir of Quran. There's about 17 requirements that a person has to have fulfilled. So if a group of people just sits in a circle and everybody has a translation of the Quran, and they say, what do you think this ayah is telling you? Well, I get this, well, I get this, well, I get this, well, I get this. What is it going to lead to? It's going to lead to a mockery of deen, and it's going to lead to يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ مِن بَعْدِ مَوَاضِعِهِ. The words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are going to be changed. Incorrect meanings are going to be assigned. So what do we learn from all of this today? Take our deen very, very seriously. Deen is not something to play around with. Take our ulama seriously. For ulama, they need to take their role seriously. And we also have to be very careful about the people who we take our deen from. Just because that person has sheikh or mufti or maulana or imam before their name, right? It's not necessarily beneficial. Hadith of Bukhari Sharif. The first 3 people to be put in Jahannam: scholar, right? A rich person, and a mujahid. The scholar will be asked, what did you do in your life? I learned for you, Ya Allah. So you didn't learn for me. You learned so everybody will say that you're such a great scholar. People said it. Go to Jahannam. What the rich person, what did you do? I spent so much in your path. You didn't spend for me. You spent, so people will say that you're very generous. They said it. Go to Jahannam. Mujahid, what did you do? I gave my life for you, Allah. No, you didn't. You did that so people would say that you're courageous. They said it. Go to Jahannam. Right? So not every hafiz, not every alim, not every person with a 1-foot beard, not every niqabi will go to Jannah. Right? It's your job. If you're going to take your deen from them, make sure that you think that you do your due diligence and find out, is that person a reliable person? See how they are in the public. See to the extent that you can in your private life. See that. See their interactions. See what they do in situations where they could take advantage of things. And then go to them for your deen. May Allah give us all tawfiq. May Allah put people like that in our lives who we could take deen from properly, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq to take our deen seriously. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Yes? Bookmark?
One that had the Quran.
Sign yourself.